Welcome to Whispering Tales. Maybe the weight of the day has started to settle on your shoulders. Maybe your mind is spinning with questions, worries, or simply wandering thoughts. Let them go. This moment is just for you. Let the outside world drift away, like mist in the wind. You're safe here, held by something ancient and kind. Tonight we begin a journey through time, dreams, and stories that were once whispered beside fires long, long ago. Close your eyes, take a slow breath in, and let it out. Now, let me tell you about the roots of the great world tree. Long before the world knew wind, before fire danced across the sky, before the stars were named, there was a tree so vast, so ancient, that its branches held the very fabric of the universe. This was Yggdrasil, the world tree, and its roots stretched into mystery. One root dipped into the land of the gods, Asgard. Another reached the realm of the frost giants, Jotunheim, and the third sank deep into the well of fate, Erdebrunn, where time itself flows. Now, beneath these roots sat three quiet sisters. They were not loud. They didn't rule or command. They simply wove. Their names were Ord, Verdandi, and Skuld. The past, the present, and the future. They didn't speak much, but their fingers moved, always weaving. Silken strands of light, shadow, and silence. Threads that connected all things. Even gods, even kings were tied to their weaving. And one god, Odin, the All-Father, knew this well. Odin had walked many roads. He had crossed realms, spoken to the dead, given one of his eyes for wisdom. But still, there was a question in his heart he could not answer. A dream he could not shake. Came at night, when even Asgard was still. He would see flames swallowing the sky, hear wolves howling in the dark, and always, the image of a tree burning, its roots torn open. And so one day he left his golden hall in silence. He wrapped himself in a gray cloak, took his spear, and walked the path to Yggdrasil's base. Not to fight, not to rule, but to listen. He passed through Midgard, where humans slept beneath cold stars. He passed the Bifrost, the shimmering rainbow bridge, which hummed like distant thunder. Finally, he came to the foot of Yggdrasil. Its bark was ancient and soft like time itself. Moss grew in patterns that seemed to whisper stories, and from deep beneath came a sound, the quiet drip of water, the heartbeat of the well of fate. The Norns were there, sitting beside the well. Their eyes were calm, and their hair shimmered like starlight. They looked up at Odin and waited. He spoke. "I have seen the shape of things to come," he said softly, "but I cannot hold it. It slips through me like mist." The sisters did not nod. They did not smile. They simply said, "To know the future, you must become part of it." Odin knew what this meant. He must give more than an eye. He must give a part of himself to time. So, without a word, he hung himself from the branches of Yggdrasil, not for death, but for vision. 9 days and 9 nights he hung there. No food, no water, no sound, only wind, tree, and fate. And on the 9th night, he saw, not with his eyes, but with something deeper. He saw the threads the Norns wove. He saw that every soul was part of the same tapestry. Even gods, even wolves, even flames. He saw that endings were not ends, but beginnings folded backward. When he awoke, his feet touched the ground gently. He was not the same. He was older, and yet lighter. He had not defeated fate, but he had become its friend. And so Odin returned to his throne in Asgard, quieter than before, but wiser. He no longer feared the fire in his dreams. He knew it would come, and he knew something would rise after. And you, as you rest now, may you feel the strength of that great tree beneath you. May your dreams be gentle, and your soul, like Odin's, grow a little lighter in the silence. In the beginning, there was nothing, no sun, no moon, no sky, no land. Only two realms drifted in the great void, Ginnungagap. One to the north was Niflheim, a land of eternal cold, frozen winds, and mist that never lifted. And to the south was Muspelheim, a blazing realm of endless fire, flames that never died, and heat that shimmered like stars. Between them was only silence, a vast emptiness where time had not yet begun. But something stirred. The fires of Muspelheim sent sparks into the void. The frost of Niflheim sent icy winds to meet them, and where fire and ice touched, they began to melt. Not fast, not loud, but quietly, like breath on a cold window. And from this melting, life began to take form. The first was not a god, but a giant. Ymir. He was enormous, a being of pure chaos, born of ice, flame, and mystery. As he slept, sweat poured from his body, and from that sweat, more giants were born, massive, slow, and deep like mountains. But alongside Ymir, another form emerged. From the melting ice came a great cow. Her name was Audhumla. She was gentle, warm, and ancient. She fed Ymir with her milk and licked the salty ice with her wide, rough tongue. For days she licked, until slowly something appeared from the ice. A shape, then a face, then a man. This was Buri, the first of the Aesir gods. He would become the ancestor of Odin. Time passed, though there were no clocks, no stars, no sun. Only the slow turning of becoming. Buri had a son, who had sons of his own. One of these was Odin, another Vili, and the third, Vi. These three brothers looked at the world and saw Ymir sleeping, breathing, growing, but his chaos had no end, and they knew a new order must rise. So they rose against him. It was not a battle of swords, but of purpose. They fought Ymir with force born of flame, will, and vision. And when Ymir fell, his great body became the world. His blood became oceans. His flesh became land. His bones, the mountains. His hair, the forest. And his skull became the sky. They placed it high above the earth and held it up with four strong dwarves, named North, South, East, and West. From the sparks of Muspelheim, they lit the heavens. These became the stars, and from Ymir's eyebrows, they formed Midgard, a safe realm for humankind. The 9 realms were then shaped, not all at once, but over time, like dreams unfolding. Asgard, realm of the Aesir gods. Vanaheim, home of the Vanir, beings of peace and magic. Alfheim, the light elves' glowing forest. Midgard, the world of men between giants and gods. Jotunheim, wild land of giants and stone. Nidavellir, deep halls of the dwarves. Svartalfheim, the dark elves' shadowy home. Niflheim, misty world of cold and silence. Muspelheim, realm of fire and unstoppable heat. And connecting them all, at the center, was the world tree Yggdrasil. Its roots fed the realms. Its branches touched the skies. Its trunk was the spine of the universe. And so the world was born, from contrast, from fire and frost, from chaos and creation. The gods watched over it. The giants whispered from its edges. and humankind opened its eyes beneath the stars. Outro, guiding into sleep. You see, even in the oldest stories, creation came from stillness, from waiting, melting, merging. Tonight, let your mind drift like sparks from Muspelheim or mist from Niflheim and find your own balance. Rest now, traveler. The world is formed, the stars are lit, and you are a part of it all. Long before gods built halls of gold, before men lit fires in Midgard, there was only one true being in the void. Ymir. He was the shape of chaos itself. His breath was like wind, his bones like mountains, his thoughts like thunder. He was not kind, nor was he cruel. He simply was, and from him life spilled without end. Giants born from his sweat, dreams formed in his sleep. Even the frost itself bent around his will. But chaos cannot hold the world forever. In the shadows of time, three brothers watched: Odin, Vili, and V, sons of Bor, grandsons of the one who rose from ice. They looked upon Ymir, and they saw a world waiting to be born, a world of form, of balance, of beauty, and they knew that for something new to rise, the old must fall. The moment was not loud. There were no war horns, no armies, only three brothers and a sleeping giant. They approached with reverence, with purpose, with quiet breath and steady hearts. Ymir stirred. The frost shifted. He opened his eyes, eyes that had never seen gods before. For the first time, he saw something smaller than himself, something sharper, focused. Before he could speak, Odin raised his spear, with sorrow, with strength. The blow was deep and slow. Ymir's blood spilled, not like water, but like rivers breaking through stone. He cried out, once. A sound that echoed across Ginnungagap. And then, stillness. But this was not an end. It was a beginning. From Ymir's blood came the oceans, vast, deep, and dark. From his flesh the land, mountains, valleys, cliffs, and soil. His bones became the towering peaks. His teeth the rocks scattered across shores. His skull was lifted by the gods, forming the dome of the sky. Inside it they placed the sun, the moon, and the stars, each one a spark from Muspelheim, now hung like lanterns above the world. From his hair, forests grew. From his brains, the clouds drifted. And finally, from his eyebrows, the gods shaped a wall around a new land. They called it Midgard, the realm of humans, a safe place, in the center of all things. The gods did not dance. They did not sing. They stood in the silence that follows creation. And they felt the weight of what they had done. A life taken, but not wasted, because in the giving of his body, Ymir became the world. Every breath we take, every river we cross, every stone we touch, all are parts of him. Even the gods walk upon his flesh. Even now, Odin, the eldest, watched the skies turn. He saw the first light touch the sea. He whispered a vow to the wind, let this world grow. And so, the 9 realms began to breathe. Once the world had shape, once the stars were hung, and Midgard nestled quietly beneath the sky, the gods began to build. They built their great hall in Asgard, high above the clouds, beyond the reach of storms. And below in Midgard, they watched the first humans wake, blinking beneath the sun, learning to walk, to build, to wonder. But distance still remained, a space between gods and mortals, between realm and realm. The gods needed a way to connect the worlds. to cross between the lands of giants, elves, men, and spirits. And so, they created a bridge, not made of stone, not made of wood, but of light, the Bifrost, a rainbow like no other, stretching across the sky, shimmering with red, orange, yellow, green, and deep blue. Not just beautiful, but strong. The bridge pulsed with divine energy. It arced from Asgard to Midgard and branched out to the other 7 realms. It was the gods' highway, the cosmic thread, the living connection between all worlds. But such a powerful path could not be left unguarded. So the gods chose one among them, a being unlike any other. They chose Heimdall. Heimdall, the silent sentinel, the golden-eyed god, born of 9 mothers and gifted with impossible senses. He could hear grass grow. He could see for hundreds of miles. He needed less sleep than a bird. And his task? To stand watch, day and night, forever. At the edge of Asgard, he built his home, Himinjorg, a shining hall overlooking the end of the bridge. There he stood, still, focused. He heard every footstep on the Bifrost. He felt every whisper of movement across realms. He was the first to see, the first to know. He carried a horn, Gjallarhorn, not just any horn, but one that, when blown, could shake the roots of Yggdrasil and call all the gods to battle. But Heimdall did not use it, not yet. He waited and watched. Travelers would come, gods, messengers, spirits, even mortals who had crossed into dreams. Each time Heimdall saw them before they arrived. He studied their eyes. He listened to the silence between their words, and he decided who could pass. He wasn't cruel. He wasn't warm. He was simply awake, always. And though he stood alone, he was not lonely. The stars moved with him. The wind spoke his name. The world tree whispered secrets through the bridge. Heimdall listened. He knew that one day, the Bifrost would burn, that the rainbow would shatter beneath the hooves of a monstrous horse. He knew of Ragnarok, the end of all things, and when that day came, he would sound Gjallarhorn, one long, echoing call, a final warning. But until that moment, he stood, silent, vigilant, unblinking. The Bifrost is more than a path. It is a promise, a bridge between what is seen and what is unseen, between waking and dreaming, between gods and humankind. And Heimdall is the guardian of all thresholds. In the golden halls of Asgard, the gods of the Aesir ruled with strength and thunder. They were builders, warriors, thinkers. Odin, the All-Father, Frigg, the Wise Queen, Thor, the Hammer-Bearer, and others, each fierce, proud, and filled with power. But far away, across hills and mists, lived another tribe of gods, the Vanir. They were different, gentler in some ways, earthbound, wise in the ways of fertility, magic, and nature. They were not lesser, only other. And when the two tribes first learned of each other, curiosity turned to judgment, and judgment to fear. It began with Gulvig, a Vanir woman, mysterious, beautiful. She traveled to Asgard, bringing her seer and ancient magic. She spoke of fate, of desires hidden deep in the heart, of gold and the fire it brings to mortal minds. The Aesir did not understand her. They feared her power, and so they acted in anger. 3 times they tried to destroy her. 3 times they burned her, and 3 times she rose from the flames, each time stronger, each time smiling. The Vanir heard of this betrayal, of the cruelty done to one of their own. And so they answered with war, not a war like mortals wage, but a divine war. Mountains shook, rivers reversed their course, the stars themselves blinked. The Aesir had thunder, the Vanir the deep and ancient powers of the earth. Neither side could win, and yet neither would yield. For a long time the war raged, with weapons, with words, with magic. But even gods grow weary, and at last, they chose something harder than fighting. They chose to speak. A great truce was formed. To seal it, each tribe gave the other something precious. The Vanir sent 3 of their finest, Jord, god of the sea, and his 2 children, Freyr and Freya, bringers of peace, love, and bounty. In return, the Aesir sent a gift of their own, and together, from both tribes, they created a being, a wise being, one of pure knowledge. They called him Kvasir, born of spit. Yes, the gods each spat into a bowl. But from that strange act came a god unlike any other. Kvasir could answer any question. He knew the secrets of the wind, the turning of the seasons, the heart of men. He became a traveler, a poet, a teacher, and for a time, the world was quiet. The Aesir and Vanir did not become one, but they learned from each other. The Aesir began to understand Seer. The Vanir saw strength in order, and together, they shaped a world filled with both fury and peace, stone and soil, sky and sea. This balance would not last forever. But for now, the gods rested, and with them the realms exhaled. Sometimes, the loudest moments in a story are not the most powerful. Sometimes, it is the moment when a sword is lowered, when hands are extended, when 2 sides simply stop. That is where the real magic lives. Just like in you, you may carry battles in your heart, wounds, doubts, struggles, but you also carry the power to rest, to soften, to begin again. Do you remember Kvasir? Born from peace, a being of shared wisdom, the essence of both the Aesir and the Vanir. He wandered the worlds, not as a warrior, but as a listener. People would gather wherever he walked, not to worship him, but to ask. They asked about love, about loss, about how rivers knew where to go, and why dreams sometimes echoed in the morning. And Kvasir answered, always with kindness, with insight, with words that made people feel seen. But wisdom, like gold, attracts greed. 2 dwarves, Jailer and Galer, were clever, cunning, and deeply envious. They didn't want Kvasir's answers. They wanted what made him special. So, they invited him in, offered him food, laughed with him, and when he least expected it, they ended his life. No battle, no noise, just silence. Then, from his blood, they created something new. They mixed it with honey, stirred it in sacred vats, and from that came the mead of poetry. This drink wasn't sweet just in taste. It was divine. Anyone who sipped it could speak in verse, write songs that moved kings, and tell stories that softened even a god's anger. It became the most treasured thing in the realms. But the dwarves didn't stop there. They killed again, a giant named Gilling, and his wife too. Gilling's son, Suttung, found out, and he was furious. He took revenge on the dwarves, stranded them on a rock in the sea, and when they begged for their lives, he agreed to spare them, but only if they gave him the mead. They did. Suttung took the golden drink and hid it in the mountains, guarded by his daughter, Gunnel, locked away, untouched, unshared. But word spread, as it always does, and soon Odin heard the tale. The All-Father was wise, but he wanted more. He wanted the mead for himself, not to hoard it, but to give it to those worthy of its power. So Odin planned. He journeyed to the mountains, disguised as a wanderer. He worked for Suttung's brother, gained his trust, tricked his way into the family, and at last, he asked Suttung for a taste of the mead. Suttung refused, so Odin changed plans again. He found Gunnel. He sang to her, spoke softly, told her tales, and she, moved by his words, let him drink. 3 sips, but Odin was clever. With just 3 sips, he drank all of it. He turned into an eagle, burst from the mountain, and flew back to Asgard. Suttung followed, also in eagle form. The sky roared with wings. Clouds tore apart. But Odin reached home just in time. He spat the mead into sacred jars and saved the gift. From that day on, Odin kept the mead safe. He shared it only with those he deemed worthy. Poets, singers, storytellers, those who speak from the heart and carry truth in their words. But not all of it was saved. Some of the mead spilled on the way, and that Odin left behind for the foolish, for those who try to mimic wisdom but lack its soul. Isn't that how stories work? Some people speak just to be heard. Others speak to be understood. And then there are those rare voices whose words light something inside us. That's the real mead, not a drink, but a feeling. And it's always been inside you, even if you don't always see it. Before the end, before Ragnarok, before the sky cracked and the world fell to fire, there was laughter, there was Loki, born not in Asgard, but among the giants. Loki was not like the rest. He was clever, quick, always watching, and Odin, the All-Father, saw something rare in him. So Odin made a blood pact. He and Loki became sworn brothers, bound not by trust, but by need. And just like that, Loki stepped into the golden halls of Asgard. He didn't bring a sword. He brought stories and ideas that danced just beyond the edge of reason. The gods didn't always like him, but they couldn't look away. He helped them again and again. When the gods lost their most precious treasures, it was Loki who traveled to the land of dwarves and bargained for new ones. A mighty hammer for Thor, golden hair for Sif, a spear, a ship, and more. And yes, he caused the trouble in the first place. But still, he fixed it. That was Loki's way. He could turn into a salmon, a fly, even a mare. Yes, once he even gave birth to an 8-legged horse named Sleipnir, Odin's loyal steed. That's the thing about Loki. He didn't fit inside boxes. He broke them, and for a long time, the gods let him. They even needed him, because where Thor was strength, Loki was strategy. Where Odin was wisdom, Loki was risk. But tricks always come with a cost. There were whispers of seeds Loki had planted, children he had fathered in shadow. 3 beings, a wolf called Fenrir, a serpent named Jormungandr, and a daughter, half beautiful, half rotting, called Hel. The gods looked at these children and saw omens. They were afraid, so they cast them out. Jormungandr was thrown into the sea. Hel was sent to rule the dead, and Fenrir, the great wolf, was chained. But fate is not easily bound. Loki watched all of this, smiling, waiting. Sometimes he still helped. He still laughed with the gods, sat at their tables, shared their wine. But something behind his eyes began to change. He saw the way they looked at him. He felt the distance grow, and deep down, a storm was building. It began with a prank, a harmless trick, or so it seemed, but it ended with the death of a beloved god. Baldur, pure, radiant, untouched by harm. Everyone loved him, except Loki. He found the one thing that could hurt Baldur, a sprig of mistletoe. He shaped it into a dart, placed it in the hands of another, and watched as Baldur fell, as Frigg wept, as light itself seemed to flicker. This time, Loki did not fix what he had broken. This time, the gods did not laugh. They hunted him. He ran, hid, changed shapes, but they found him, and when they did, they chained him in the heart of the earth. They placed a serpent above him, its venom dripping slowly on his face, and there he stayed, writhing, burning, hating, waiting. Sometimes, the one who smiles the most is the one who hurts the deepest. Sometimes chaos comes, not from evil, but from pain left unheard. Loki was not born a monster. He was made one, bit by bit, and even in the deepest darkness, his story whispers truths about change, about betrayal, and about the danger of being unseen. He was born in shadow, a son of Loki and a giantess named Angerboda. From the start, the gods watched him with wary eyes. Fenrir wasn't just any creature. He was a wolf, massive, powerful, and growing larger every day. They watched his paws stretch wider than shields, his teeth sharper than swords, his golden eyes like fire under ice. And they listened to the whispers, the prophecies. One day, this wolf would kill Odin. One day, he would tear the world apart. So they made a choice. They brought the wolf to Asgard. They tried to raise him among them, to tame him, to test him. But it wasn't trust. It was fear. They fed him meat, spoke to him in gentle tones, but always with one hand on a blade. And Fenrir, he saw it. He wasn't a monster yet, but he was becoming one. As he grew, so did the gods' anxiety. So they forged chains. First, they made one called Linger. It was thick, heavy, forged with divine strength. They asked Fenrir to let them bind him, just for fun, they said. A game, they claimed. He agreed. Let them wrap the chain around him. Then, with a single pull, he snapped it like thread. The gods laughed nervously, so they made another, stronger, called Dromi. Once again they asked, and once again he allowed it. And once again, the chain shattered beneath him. The laughter faded. The gods grew desperate. They asked the dwarves to forge a final chain, but not from metal, from magic. They called it Gleipnir. It was soft, thin as silk, made from 6 impossible things: the sound of a cat's footfall, the beard of a woman, the roots of a mountain, the breath of a fish, the spittle of a bird, and the heartbeat of a stone. It looked harmless, but it was unbreakable. They brought it to Fenrir, and this time, he hesitated. Something inside him stirred. I will only let you bind me, he said, if one of you places your hand in my mouth. So if you betray me, I can bite. The gods fell silent. Then one stepped forward, Tyr, the god of war and honor. He looked at Fenrir and placed his hand between the wolf's teeth. They wrapped Gleipnir around Fenrir's legs. He pulled, but this time, nothing broke, only silence. And then, Tyr's scream. Fenrir bit down, and the gods, satisfied and shaken, left the wolf bound on an island of stone. They shoved a sword into his mouth to hold it open, so he could no longer howl. And there, He waited, eyes burning, fur stiff with rage, mouth dripping with silence. Sometimes, the most dangerous things are not what we fear, but how we choose to face that fear. Fenrir wasn't born cruel. He was born into a world that feared what he could become. They didn't teach him trust. They taught him pain. And when you chain something strong, you don't stop its power. You concentrate it. One day, that chain will break. And when it does, the sky will remember the sound. Baldur was loved, not just by the gods, but by all who walked the earth. He was beautiful, radiant as the sun, with a spirit as pure as the dawn. Wherever he went, the world seemed to shine brighter. But even Baldur was not immune to the threads of fate. The Norns, those ancient weavers of destiny, had spoken of a prophecy. They said Baldur would die, and so the gods feared. They feared the inevitable. They tried to protect him, made him invulnerable. Each god gave something to ensure his safety. No weapon could harm him. No beast could strike him down. And for a time it worked. Baldur became a figure of invincibility, a light that could not be dimmed. But where there is light, there is always shadow. Loki watched, silent, observing, waiting. He saw how the gods celebrated Baldur's power, how they took comfort in his immortality, and it drove him mad. To see a world so dependent on one god's light, it was too much for Loki to bear. So he crafted a plan, a simple trick. He went to Frigg, Baldur's mother, and asked her, had she truly made everything in the world swear not to harm her son? Frigg, trusting him, replied with a smile, I asked everything, but there is one thing I didn't think to ask. The mistletoe is so small, so harmless. And that was all Loki needed. He found the mistletoe, a tiny branch, soft and unassuming. Then he approached HR, Baldur's blind brother, and handed him the mistletoe, whispering that he should throw it at Baldur, just as the others were throwing their weapons in fun, trying to hurt him. HR hesitated, but Loki persuaded him. Char aimed. The mistletoe flew, and in that instant, Baldur fell. The gods stared in shock. The earth grew silent. For the first time, Baldur had fallen, and death had touched the gods. Frigg screamed. Odin wept. The gods searched for a way to bring Baldur back. They sent Hermod, Odin's son, to the land of the dead. He rode Sleipnir into Hel's realm to ask for Baldur's soul in exchange for all that was precious on earth. Hel agreed, but only if every living thing in the world wept for Baldur. The gods begged, they pleaded, but not everyone wept. Loki, in disguise, refused, and so Baldur stayed in Hel, his light lost to the dark. Sometimes, even the brightest hearts cannot escape fate. Even the purest souls are swept into the shadows. Baldur's death was not just the loss of a god. It was the beginning of something darker. It was the first step toward the end. But in this darkness, we must remember that light does not fade forever. It may be gone for now, but it will return, just as dreams return after night. The sky has darkened, the winds have risen, and from the cold depths of Jormungandr's sea, the serpent stirs. The earth trembles as the rooster crows, calling the gods to war. In Asgard, the halls are silent now. The warriors have gathered. They know the end is near. The prophecy of the Norns cannot be undone. It is time. The world serpent has awakened. and with it the wolves, the great Fenrir, his chains broken, free at last. And the gods, they have prepared for this, or at least they hope they have. For this is the day that will swallow the world, and no one is safe. Odin, the All-Father, he has seen it all. He knows his fate. He knows the day of his death, and yet he goes to battle. He rides Sleipnir, his eight-legged steed, to meet his end. He is the ruler of the gods, the one who sacrificed his eye for wisdom, the one who will now face Fenrir, the wolf who will tear him apart. The gods gather: Thor, the mighty thunder god; Loki, the trickster and the betrayer; Freya, the goddess of love and war; and all the brave souls who followed Odin. They march to the field of Vigrid, where the final battle will be fought. The ground is cracked, the sky is blood red, and the earth trembles, for Ragnarok has begun. The first blow comes from Loki's children. The great wolf Fenrir attacks Odin. With a roar that shakes the heavens, he pounces. Odin fights, but his spear is useless against the wolf's might. Fenrir's jaws close around him, and in one terrible bite, the All-Father is no more. The gods scream, the sky weeps, but there is still Thor. He faces Jormungandr, the serpent of the deep. They clash, with the force of thunder against the fury of the ocean. Thor's hammer, Mjolnir, strikes again and again, but Jormungandr is mighty, and with each strike, Thor grows weaker. At last, Thor slays the serpent, but as it dies, its venom floods the earth. Thor takes a step and collapses, his strength gone, and the world fades to black. In the distance, Freya fights fiercely, her sword flashing as she brings down the enemies around her. But in the end, even she cannot escape the tide of destruction. Loki, the betrayer, faces his fate too, and his fight is brutal. But even his cunning is no match for the end. The gods fall, the warriors fall, and the world falls with them. Ragnarok, it was not just a battle, it was the reckoning. A reckoning for the gods who had once ruled the earth, and for the world they had shaped. The end comes for all, for the strong, the wise, the proud. But even in the darkness, a new world will rise. A new beginning waits in the ashes. But for now, the light has dimmed, and the night is all there is. When the final battles of Ragnarok had ended, the earth lay in ruins. Asgard was no more. The gods had fallen, but the world was not lost. From the ashes of the old, a new world began to emerge. The land was still, the sky was clearer, and the oceans, once raging, began to calm. After the battle, two survivors remained: Víðarr, the son of Odin, and Váli, the son of Loki. They walked through the desolate fields of Vigrid, the winds whispering of a world yet to be born. But they were not alone, for from the depths of the earth, a new tree began to grow, a great tree as mighty as the one that had fallen during Ragnarok. This tree was the symbol of hope, the roots of the past, and the branches of a new future. It was a sign that even in destruction, life could always begin again. Loki's children, the monsters who had once brought doom, were not lost in the end. Instead, they took on new roles in this world: guardians of the earth, keepers of balance. And as the days passed, the earth gave birth to new life. Where once there had been war and death, now there were fields of flowers, lush forests, and the sound of birds once again filling the sky. In the distance, a new sun rose, and Baldur, the god of light who had once died, now rose again, his spirit reborn. He stood beneath the new sky, and the world saw his light again. But this time, he was not alone. A new generation of gods arose, not just from the old, but from the humble and the pure. They were young and eager, carrying the wisdom of the past, but with the hope of a fresh beginning. They would rule the earth, not with power, but with wisdom, not with pride, but with love. The new world is not the same as the one before. It is different, it is new, and it will be shaped by the choices of those who now walk upon it. The gods, the mortals, and all who dream. The sun rose higher now, bringing with it a sense of possibility. The earth, still healing from the battle of Ragnarok, now flourished with life. The rivers were clearer, the skies were more vibrant, and the trees, once burned and broken, now stood tall and strong. This was the new world, a world that had been shaped by both loss and hope. In this world, Víðarr and Váli walked as the first of the new gods. They were the sons of the fallen, the sons of Odin and Loki, and they carried the weight of the old with them. But they did not carry it as a burden. They carried it as wisdom. They saw the lessons of the past, and they chose a different path, one of balance, one of respect for all things. As the days passed, the first seeds of new life began to grow. The earth itself seemed to breathe, as though it were waking from a long slumber. The people who survived the great battle began to rebuild, slowly but surely, and with them there came new stories, stories of hope, of renewal, of a future yet to be written. In the distant lands, new heroes would rise. They would be shaped by the old gods, but they would bring new strength, new courage. The tales of the past would live on, not as warnings, but as inspiration, to protect, to rebuild, and to grow. And among these new heroes, there would be stories of love. For love is the force that binds everything, even when the world seems broken. Baldur, the god of light, who had once fallen, now stood once more beneath the sky, a symbol of what can grow from darkness. And beside him stood those who had come after, the new gods, the young gods, the gods who would learn to rule with wisdom, with patience, and with understanding. They would teach the world what it means to live, to grow, to be kind, and to cherish the earth they walked upon. The world is new, but it is full of possibilities, just like you, just like the seeds that lie beneath the soil. In this new world, there is space for growth, space for dreams to come true. All that we need is hope, and the belief that even the smallest action, the softest word, can change the course of a future. As the world began to heal, new lands were uncovered, places once hidden beneath the chaos of Ragnarok. Now the earth stood still, and the mountains, valleys, and rivers revealed themselves once again. Víðarr and Váli, the sons of the gods, ventured far and wide. They walked through lush forests, explored forgotten caverns, and stood upon the highest peaks. And in the distance, they could see the mysteries that awaited them. Hidden places, uncharted lands, and the ancient knowledge of the old gods. In the heart of the new world, they discovered temples, temples that had been built by the first gods, long before Ragnarok had come. These temples were silent, their walls covered in strange, glowing symbols, symbols that had not been seen for centuries. Víðarr and Váli studied these markings, seeking the wisdom of their ancestors. For within those symbols lay the answers to many questions. What secrets had been hidden? what knowledge had been lost. They stood in awe before these relics, their fingers tracing the ancient carvings. And in that moment, they understood. The world was not just a place of rebirth, but also a place of discovery. And as they ventured further, they found new creatures, beasts that roamed the land, filling the world with wonder. Some of these creatures were gentle, others were wild and untamed, but all of them were part of the new world, part of the balance that was slowly being restored. In one forest, they came upon a clearing where the trees parted to reveal a hidden lake, a lake so still it looked like a mirror. And there, at the center of the lake, was a stone altar covered in vines and moss. Víðar stepped forward, his hand hovering over the altar, and in that moment, a light flashed across the water. It was the first sign of magic, the first spark of the old powers that had once governed the world. The gods had left behind more than just memories. They had left a legacy, a hidden power that would awaken when the time was right. The world is full of mysteries. Not all answers are meant to be found immediately. Some things must be left to time, to the moments when we are ready. But the path of discovery is endless, and it is filled with endless wonders. Perhaps like Víðar and Váli, we all have our own mysteries to uncover, our own journeys of discovery. As Víðar and Váli continued their journey, they encountered many strange and wondrous creatures. Creatures that had not been seen for ages, beasts that had once been hidden away, tucked in the far corners of the world. Some of these creatures were guardians, protectors of the earth and its balance. Others were spirits, whispers of the past, still lingering, their presence felt in the winds. The forest guardian. One day, in a thick forest of towering trees, Víðar and Váli came upon a creature unlike any other. It was a massive stag, with antlers that shimmered in the light, each tine covered in leaves and vines. Its eyes were glowing, a soft, ethereal blue. The creature stepped forward, its hooves barely touching the ground. And as it did, the earth seemed to breathe. This was the forest guardian, a being created to protect the woods, to keep the balance between life and death. It spoke to them not with words, but with a deep, knowing gaze, a gaze that carried the weight of the ancient forests. It was a creature born from the magic of the old gods, a living connection between the earth and the sky, the lake serpent. Further along their path, they arrived at a peaceful lake, where the waters seemed to glow with an unnatural light. At the center of the lake, a serpent swam, its body long and sleek, its scales reflecting the light in a dazzling array of colors. The lake serpent was a creature of mysticism, a being that controlled the waters of the earth. It was said that the serpent could summon rain, and its presence was tied to the health of the lakes, rivers, and oceans. As Víðar and Váli watched, the serpent rose from the water, its eyes glowing with a quiet power. It was a creature of the deep, a reminder of the ancient forces that still shaped the world. The sky harbinger. In the high mountains, where the wind howled and the clouds seemed to touch the peaks, the brothers saw a flash of movement in the sky. It was a great bird, its wings as wide as the horizon itself. The bird was a messenger, a sky harbinger, carrying the knowledge of the heavens. With feathers like silver and eyes like burning stars, the bird watched the brothers below. Its song echoed through the mountains, a song that carried the promise of new beginnings, of hope rising with the dawn. The world is full of creatures, some large, some small, some gentle, some fierce. They carry the energy of the earth, the stories of the past, and the magic of the world. Each creature is a piece of the puzzle, a part of the great balance that is being restored. As Víðarr and Váli wandered the earth, they began to feel the pull of something older, a force that resonated beneath their feet, a presence that stirred in the wind, a power that was woven into the very fabric of the world. It was the old magic, the magic that had been there before the gods walked the earth. It was the magic that made the mountains rise, the rivers flow, and the trees grow. The world, though reborn, was still governed by these ancient forces, the whisper of the earth. One evening, as the brothers rested beneath a tree, a strange sound reached their ears. It was a whisper, a soft, distant hum that seemed to come from deep within the earth itself. They listened carefully, and the hum grew louder until it was as if the earth were speaking to them. It was the voice of the Earth Mother, the spirit of the land, a being as old as time itself. She whispered of the power beneath the ground, the deep, untamed forces that had shaped the world long before the gods, the hidden flame. In another part of the world, Víðarr ventured alone to a place known as the Black Mountain, a place where no one dared to tread. It was a mountain that had been silent for ages, but there was a flame burning within its heart, a flame that had never gone out. This was the flame of the ancients, a fire that burned with the essence of the old gods. It was said that whoever touched the flame would gain knowledge of all things, the past, the present, and the future. But the flame was dangerous, and few had ever dared approach it. Víðarr, guided by instinct, reached out and touched the flame. For a moment, the world around him faded, and he saw the world as it had been in the days before the gods. He saw the first magic that had shaped the stars, the first power that had made the earth turn. In that moment, he understood that the world was not simply born of gods, but of forces that transcended even them, forces that were bound to the earth, to the sky, to the very soul of the world, the veil between worlds. Later, in a darkened grove, Váli stood beneath the moon tree, a tree said to be the bridge between worlds. The moon tree was no ordinary tree. Its roots reached into the very fabric of time itself, and its branches stretched to the heavens, touching the veil between the mortal realm and the divine. As Váli placed his hand upon the bark, he felt a strange connection, a pull as if the very fabric of reality was shifting. Through the veil, he saw glimpses of the ancient gods and the powers they had wielded. He saw the forces that had shaped the world and the magic that had once flowed freely through the veins of the earth. It was a vision of an age long past, a time when the boundaries between the divine and the mortal were thin, when magic was alive and all-powerful. But with the passing of time, the veil had thickened. The old powers had been forgotten or hidden away, their magic sealed in the depths of the earth. The world is still full of secrets, hidden beneath the surface of what we see. There are forces at work that we cannot always understand, but they are there, shaping the world, guiding the course of time. Perhaps it is in these ancient powers, these forgotten magics, that we can find the truth of our world. As Víðarr and Váli continued their journey, they found themselves standing on the edge of a great cliff, the wind blowing gently, carrying the scent of the sea. Before them, the horizon stretched out, vast and endless. They had learned much on their path, of the ancient powers that shaped the world, of the creatures who protected it, and of the magic that still thrummed beneath every stone and leaf. But now they knew their journey was nearly complete. The Earth Mother had spoken to them through the whispers of the trees, and the flame of the ancients had given them visions of what once was. They had felt the pull of the moon tree and glimpsed the divine forces that shaped the heavens. And now, standing at the edge of the world, they understood. This was the balance of the universe, the old world and the new world, the past and the future, all interwoven in a never-ending cycle. The power they had discovered was not just something to be understood or controlled. It was something to be embraced. It was the pulse of life itself. The cycle would continue whether they were there to witness it or not. The gift of knowledge. As the brothers stood there, watching the sun dip below the horizon, a soft glow surrounded them. It was the light of the first dawn, the light that had been with them all along. This was the gift of their journey, the gift of understanding, of connection to all that is, and all that ever was. The world was not perfect, but it was whole, and in that wholeness there was peace. The forces of nature, the creatures of legend, and the power of the gods were all part of something greater. They turned to each other, and in that quiet moment they understood. Their journey had come to an end, but the world would continue to spin. The old powers would always remain, and the new world would always rise. The eternal cycle. With one last glance at the world they had traveled, they stepped forward, their path now clear. The forces of the earth would always guide them. The magic would never fade, and the cycle of the world would continue. Through the rising of the sun, the falling of the night, through every season, every change, and every rebirth. The journey may have ended, but the story never really ends. It continues in the whispers of the wind, in the rustle of the trees, in the shimmer of the stars. It lives in the power of the earth, and in the hearts of those who carry it forward. So rest now. The light may fade for the moment, but in the quiet darkness, remember, the cycle will return, and you will always be part of it. You are part of this world, and the magic it holds. Good night, my friend.